What are the Israelis now saying? Yesterday, the Minister of National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir, called this national defeat if it goes ahead in this formula, if Hamas even so much as remains in Gaza. Although Hamas said clearly we're not going to be governing Gaza, but a technocratic transitional government in preparation for the establishment of a Palestinian state afterwards. Now, the largest Israeli mainstream media outlets are saying Hamas is not going to disappear. And they're lying blatantly to the whole world by saying, and that was not a goal set by the cabinet in the war. Disregarding the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu always, time after time, used to say he wants to eliminate them, and he wants to eliminate them, and he wants to eliminate them. And now, when there are certain prospects to reach a deal, all of a sudden Israeli media says, oh, actually it wasn't the intention anyway. So what are they saying exactly? Well, the Israeli media is preparing the Israeli public opinion for Hamas to remain inside of the Gaza Strip. As a matter of fact, in this article too, they also stated that even the talks about Hamas's disarming, Israel knows that it's going to be very difficult at the moment, you know. And from Benjamin Netanyahu's perspective, although he previously said that Israel can still take military action to disarm Hamas later on, he also said that diplomatically that can happen too. But if it doesn't happen, we will do it the hard way. Doing it the hard way failed for 2 years. Israel, the fact that Israel is negotiating is a sign of the failure of the military campaign of Israel. Otherwise, if you did have a military campaign where you could enforce all of your political demands and translate that on the ground, well, then why didn't you continue with this campaign? And why did you have to make these concessions and put yourself in a defensive, supposedly a defensive mode inside of the Gaza Strip? If Israel was still so strong and capable, why did they enter into a ceasefire agreement before and retreat from certain areas that they considered to be so strategic and said that they will never withdraw from? Now even talks in Israel are preparing the Israeli public opinion that very heavy sentence Palestinian prisoners will be released. Names like Marwan al-Barghouthi. There are other serious names from a Palestinian perspective, but they're preparing the public opinion. These articles are also talking about the fact that this temporary drawing of the new map in Gaza that Donald Trump published isn't really the final deal, and that Hamas will be insisting on Israel withdrawing further, and that Israel will have to withdraw further eventually. But they're still not going all out. They're still not talking about everything that's going to happen later on, and they're trying not to publish too much information now so that it doesn't look like an absolute and total embarrassment or a national defeat, like what Ben-Gvir told Netanyahu and the Israeli public yesterday, should this go ahead, and Hamas will remain inside of the Gaza Strip, even not as a ruling power. So in effect, we have a situation here where the talks are serious, they are being conducted, they are happening. We have an administration in the United States, whether for personal and tight reasons or more genuine reasons to actually reach an end to the war, are pushing for this to get sorted. Israel, on the other hand, is feeling some sort of pressure from Donald Trump. The Israeli media is saying that it was Donald Trump's pressure that forced Benjamin Netanyahu to stop this campaign. Netanyahu was surprised by these moves from Donald Trump to endorse or at least publish the statements of Hamas, confirming that they are interested in a ceasefire agreement and confirming that they will go ahead with certain things on the right conditions. But what's happening on the ground is a translation. That doesn't guarantee the success. However, it does show that there are certain political moves happening on the ground that are being backed more and more by many countries. and Israel reached a point inside of the Gaza Strip where they can no longer militarily progress any further than what they have so far. 2 years of full-blown genocide, 2 years of the equivalent of 8 nuclear bombs, over 60,000 martyrs, over 250,000 martyred and wounded altogether. And the Palestinian resistance, not only did they not raise the white flag, they raised the black flag against the Israeli genocide forces and increased their attacks against the genocide forces in Gaza that became more lethal in quality, in execution, more successful, and more advanced even in multiple parts of the Gaza Strip that Israel declared were clear from the resistance fighters. Therefore, Israel was forced into this because they failed. Israel did not have the upper hand. Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to portray what they're doing as a success, and due to the military pressure, that is due to the military failure. And the fact that Netanyahu and his delusions and dreams of expelling the Palestinian people, eliminating the Hamas, and resettling in Gaza have all vanished. And now there are more talks that the agents of the IDF inside of the Gaza Strip, including the ISIS-linked militias that were operating against the Gazan population, are now in talks trying to find mediators to have a peace process and negotiations with Hamas so they don't come after them and target them. Because the Palestinian resistance was going after the traitors, Israel's agents in Gaza, for many months now. And they told the head of the movement they're coming after him. So that shows you that they feel like they're being neglected by Israel. They feel like things are going the opposite way. The fact that Israel retreated to the pre-Gideon's chariots 2 borders, whilst indicating that they're willing to withdraw further to allow the release, shows you that there are certain developments. Of course, both Netanyahu and Donald Trump are capable of exploding everything. However, in the meantime, and despite the complexity of the issues being spoken about and negotiated, the negotiations are still moving and are still taking place with a lot of effort, especially from Egypt, to bring the majority of the views closer and closer so that the deal can get executed as soon as possible.